been almost a full year since I started shooting with the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. And if you guys have been following my channel for a while, then you know that I am a big fan of this camera. I've made lots of videos about it, including reasons to buy it, setup guides, accessory guides, all kinds of videos. But in this video, I thought I'd give you my 1 year update, how it's been going using this camera, the things that I love about it, and there are many, but also some things that I don't like about it, because for as much as I love this camera, it is not a perfect camera. So I will talk about some of the improvements I'd like to see on a future version of this camera as well. But first of all, let's talk about the things that I love. So number one, this is a truly compact camera. You know, it's called the Pocket for a reason, because it really is pocket-sized. It's very easy to slip into my pocket, into my backpack, into my purse. I just always have it with me, so whenever I feel the creative urge to film something, I can pull this camera out and start using it. And because it is so small and discreet, I feel comfortable bringing it out to film just about anywhere. You know, right now I am in a forest environment. It is where I do a lot of filming, is outdoors on nature trails. But I've also filmed, you know, in downtown Seattle. I've filmed in Paris and throughout France when I'm traveling. And every time I do, I don't feel self-conscious using this camera because of how small it is. With that said, another camera that I do constantly have with me is my iPhone. This is the iPhone 16 Pro, and you know, I do love this camera phone as well, but you know, it's not just a camera, it's also my phone. It has a lot of important things on it, and so, you know, I'll talk a little bit about that too, about why, for as much as I love using the phone, and I do use it a lot, you know, primarily for photos, I would say, but also for some video, it's not my primary video vlogging camera. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, you know, it's more than a camera. If I lose it, it's my email, my wallet, my correspondences, all of that goes. And so I don't want to put, you know, the pressure of having my camera files on my phone as well, or my important camera files. And so for that reason, not really my number one choice to use as a camera. But also, if I ever want to vlog with this camera, I most likely want to have a screen where I can see what I'm shooting, like I do right now in the Pocket 3. But if I want to do that with the iPhone, even the iPhone 16 Pro, if I'm using that front-facing camera, then I am still restricted. I can't use the action mode that gives you that built-in stabilization that, you know, is really, really good on this phone if you're using the back-facing camera. Not so great using the front-facing camera. And so, you know, that's one of many reasons why I don't think the phone is going to be my primary vlogging camera, why it hasn't been that way. So since I mentioned it, having that big LCD display on the Pocket 3 so I can see what I'm filming as I'm filming it is yet another reason why I love this camera. You know, I've used all three versions of the Osmo Pocket. I used the original Osmo Pocket when it first came out. I used the Pocket 2 and now the Pocket 3. And I can safely say that, in my opinion at least, and I think a lot of other people as well, because of how popular this camera has been, that the Pocket 3 is really that camera that brought the Pocket to, you know, a really usable form factor, in that, you know, more and more people are using this camera now, because for the original Osmo Pocket and the Pocket 2 was still kind of a fringe camera, not many people knew about it, but this Pocket 3 has just been so great for many reasons. Form factor being one, but also the image quality. So image quality, you know, you can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second, normal speed video on this camera. You can't do anything crazy like 5K or 8K, but if I'm perfectly honest, I never shoot in those resolutions even when I have them available on my cameras. So for me, 4K 60 is totally enough. I actually shoot in 4K 30 a majority of the time, like I am right now. And if I ever want to shoot slow motion video, I can do 4K 120 frames per second on this camera, which is insane. You know, now in the iPhone 16 Pro, that's something that just came out, is the ability to shoot 4K 120. But on the Pocket 3, we've had that for, you know, over a year now. So that is really cool. I don't shoot slow motion a lot, but if I ever want to, I like knowing that I can do it on a camera of this size. Now, speaking of image quality, I also really like the colors that come out of the Pocket 3. I've always liked DJI colors. I like it on the Osmo Action series as well as the Pocket, but again, I think the Pocket 3, for some reason the colors just look really, really good compared to like the Pocket 2 and the original Osmo Pocket. So the DJI color science, in my opinion, has really come a long way. And what's also nice is that you can shoot in standard color, or you could hop over to HLG HDR, or you can do D-Log M. And D-Log M is a flat color profile, so you do have to color grade it and do those corrections in post-production, but it gives you more control over the final look and feel of your video. And to once again compare this camera to the iPhone, log shooting is something that came out on the iPhone 15, and now on the 16 as well, it also has log. But if you do shoot in log, those files are so big that you have to have either an external memory card plugged into the phone, or you have to, have a lot of built-in storage on the phone in order to shoot log. But since I mentioned internal storage, I will say that that's one thing that I do wish the Pocket 3 did have that it doesn't have currently. You do have to insert your own memory card, which is nice because you have control over how much space is on that memory card. But sometimes you forget your memory card, or your memory card is filled up and you don't realize it. And so you can't shoot your video if you don't have space on your card. And so that's one time when I do wish that cameras like this had internal storage, which is something that, speaking of DJI, the Osmo Action 5 Pro did come out with internal storage. So it is something that we know that DJI is considering. They're rolling out on other cameras that they have. And so I'd love to see internal storage built into a future version of the Pocket 3. But to loop back to image quality, one other thing I love about the DJI Pocket 3 is Glamour Effects. And so this is something that might seem like it's not important, and maybe for some of you it isn't. Some people don't like Glamour Effects, where you can go in and you can, enhance your makeup, or you can smooth out your skin. And, that's something that I don't use all the time, and I understand if you don't want to use it all the time. But I like having that as an option because not many cameras out there, especially of this size, give you the opportunities to do that in post-production. And if you try to do skin smoothing in your video editing software like DaVinci Resolve, I have tried doing that. I think it works okay, but it takes so long to process when you're doing that on your computer. So it is something that, if you can't get it right in camera, that, you can do it through the app on the Pocket 3. Another feature that I love about the DJI Pocket 3 is that 1-inch sensor. And so because of that, along with the fact that this little camera is sitting on top of a gimbal, which stabilizes the whole picture, I'll talk about the gimbal later on in the next point, but that means that you can shoot really good low light footage. I think for compact cameras, the Pocket 3 is still my #1 choice if I want to shoot in low light. Pitch black dark, obviously, even a camera like this is not going to do well. Even, a full frame camera isn't going to do well in pitch black dark. But if you're shooting like at blue hour, like a little bit after sunset, then, small cameras like this tend to struggle. Even my iPhone struggles in low lighting like that. But the Pocket 3, because of its 1-inch sensor, as well as that gimbal to stabilize the footage, actually does really well in low lighting. I would even say that, of the action cameras, like the Action 5 Pro and even the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, those shoot pretty well in low light, but they still struggle when you're trying to walk or do any kind of movement. But the Pocket 3, because of that gimbal, even in low light, it is still looking really smooth. And I think it does give you the best image quality if you don't have a lot of light to shoot in. But since I mentioned action cameras, I do want to bring up one con or thing that could be improved on this camera, and that would be its water resistance. Now, I understand this is not an action camera. If you need something that's super waterproof and rugged and tough, then obviously this is not your camera. You would want to look at something like an action camera. But I would like some degree of water resistance at least on this camera, because I will confess, this is actually my second Pocket 3. My first Pocket 3 died because it got a little wet. As you can see, I live in a very wet environment. I live in Seattle. I was out filming with my first Pocket 3, and there was just a little drizzle. And I did try to put this camera away quickly once I realized it was raining or drizzling, but I didn't do it in time. So my first Pocket 3 actually died on me, and it didn't even get that wet. And so I'd love to see, just a little bit of water resistance on this camera for times like that. But one of the reasons why the Pocket 3 is so fragile and why it is a little unrealistic to expect that this camera ever will have any kind of water resistance or toughness is because of that gimbal. And the gimbal is special because it offers stabilization whenever you're walking or moving in bright light or in low light, but it also offers some other features that are really useful, such as the ability to do active track. So if you're not familiar, active track is when you can plant the camera. Using that LCD, you can tap on a subject, such as myself, and now if I start moving, the camera will actually track me, which is a feature that you don't find on a lot of cameras because a lot of cameras don't have gimbals. It's something that you have to have a gimbal to be able to use. Another thing you can only do with a gimbal is a moving time lapse. So time lapses, are great for showing the passage of time in a creative way, and I like to use them as segues between my clips whenever I'm doing like a cinematic video. But the thing about time lapses is that they're pretty static. Like you can add that zoom in, zoom out, Ken Burns effect in post-production, but for the most part, the camera is pretty static, unless you have the camera on a gimbal. And so using a gimbal, you can do a moving time lapse, which the camera can pan from left to right, or even up and down as you're doing your time lapse. And it just makes the time lapse look and seem a lot more dynamic and more engaging. So whenever I am doing a time lapse, I try to do a moving time lapse, and I tend to use the Pocket 3 for that. And the final feature about the Pocket 3, and really all of DJI's current compact cameras that is making me really commit to the brand and not want to use any other brand right now, is the DJI Mic 2 transmitter. So the DJI Mic 2, you can get the transmitters, use them with the Bluetooth connection to small cameras like the Pocket 3 or the Osmo Action 4, the Osmo Action 5. You can also get the big DJI Mic 2 kit with the receiver to actually plug into the cameras. And it's nice to have those options. But what I really like is that when I'm using it, Bluetooth like this, it's completely wireless. I don't have to stick the receiver into the camera. I don't have to worry if I forgot the USB-C cable or the 3.5mm microphone cable, which I do that constantly with other microphones that I'm using. I did it last week. So it just gives you a lot more peace of mind because this does make a world of difference with the audio. This is a sound test of just the Pocket 3 using the internal microphones. So now the DJI Mic 2 transmitter is connected, and this is what it sounds like using that microphone. And now I've turned on the noise reduction. This is what it sounds like using the DJI Mic 2 microphone with the noise reduction. I can also enable internal recording on the transmitter. So that gives me some peace of mind in case for some reason the audio that the camera is recording right now gets messed up or doesn't record properly. I can have that audio file also recorded onto my transmitter as backup. Now, one other thing to say about this DJI Mic 2 transmitter is that you can do those wireless Bluetooth connections with other cameras. Like you can do it with your phone, you can do it with action cameras like the Osmo Action 5, Osmo Action 4. You can also do it with the GoPro. You can do it with the Insta360 Ace Pro 1 and 2. But when you do that, the audio quality does tend to be degraded if you're not using it with another DJI camera. And so that's a time when you might want to use that DJI Mic 2 receiver to actually plug it into the camera. I do find that the audio quality goes up dramatically whenever you're doing that with non-DJI cameras. But again, like I said, that's why this microphone is making me feel very committed to DJI cameras in particular right now, because of its convenience and because if you're using the Bluetooth connection with a DJI camera, I find that the audio quality is pretty much, spot on. I don't hear any audio quality differences when Bluetooth connected to DJI cameras. So those are the main features that I love about the DJI Pocket 3, and the main reason why it's become my primary camera for going out to vlog, for going out to do A-roll, for doing B-roll. But like I said, there are some drawbacks or things that I think could be improved on this camera. Now to me, none of these are deal breakers. Like they're not a reason to not buy this camera, but they're just things to be aware of and things that DJI, if you're listening, I love to see on a future version of this camera, the DJI Pocket 4 perhaps, whenever that might come out. So So I did mention a couple of those drawbacks already. One being the lack of internal storage. Would love to see that. Number two, would love to see some sort of water resistance on this camera, because as far as I can tell, there's really none. The next thing I'd love to see is a battery that is not built in. So, you know, for as much as I want built-in storage, I don't want a built-in battery, which is what the Pocket 3 currently has. You know, with that said, the Pocket 3 battery, in my opinion and for my usages, is pretty good as it is. Like, I've never run out of battery whenever I'm out filming videos like this, whenever I'm out doing my travel vlogs, but that is just the style of video that I film. I, don't film longer than 5-minute increments typically, and I don't film continuously for an hour plus. But I think the battery life is pretty good for what I need, but still, that battery is built in, and so whenever the battery does die, you need to recharge it. Now, DJI did release the battery handle, so you can plug that into the bottom of the camera, and that does give you some juice. It allows you to keep going. So it's kind of a workaround for not having a removable battery, but myself and I think many others would still like to have that removable battery for peace of mind. And also, if you ever need to do a hard reset of the camera, it's a little hard to do, versus if you could just pull the battery out to reset it. That would be really nice. Something else I'd like to see in the Pocket 3 is like face metering. This is something that the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, which is an action camera, kind of a totally different camera than the Pocket 3, but the Ace Pro 2 has the option to choose metering. You can do matrix metering, or you can do face metering. And when it does face metering, I mean, this isn't the best example because our lighting is so even right now, but say I was really backlit. If I had face priority metering selected, then the camera would expose for my face and keep my face, properly lit the whole time, even if the lighting conditions around me change. But as far as I can tell, this camera does not have face priority metering. And so, again, because I use this camera a lot to vlog and have my face in it, I would love to have that feature. Along those lines, I'd like to see some kind of face detect or eye autofocus. This is something that we see on Sony cameras. Sony does it really, really well in their cameras, but I haven't really seen it on little pocket cameras. Actually, even the iPhone has pretty good, face detect, where it zeroes in on a face, recognizes there's a face there, and keeps that face in focus all the time. I would love to see that on the Pocket 3. The Pocket 3 does have product showcase mode, which we have not seen on previous Pocket cameras or Osmo Pocket cameras. And so product showcase is great because when that's enabled, if you hold something up close to the camera, well, I guess I do have it enabled right now, then the camera focuses on that. And then if you remove it, then it focuses on whatever's in the background. But it's not specific to a face or to human eyes. So I'd like to have that feature added to this camera as well. And other than that, there's one other thing. This camera, because it's so small, I understand why they didn't do this, but I would love for on the bottom of the camera, instead of just having that USB-C connection or port, which I know you need to offload your footage or to charge the camera via a cable, I would love to see a 1/4-20 hole or some kind of way to mount this camera. Because right now you have to carry around this little nub that actually has that 1/4-20 hole, and I can't tell you how many times I've left home without it or just forgotten it somewhere. And if I don't have it, then I can't mount this camera onto like a mini tripod or onto any other kind of mount. So those are my thoughts after roughly 1 year of using the DJI Pocket 3 to film my tech tutorial A-roll on the go, as well as my travel vlogs and some of my B-roll. Again, largely positive. Like, I don't have very many negative things to say about this camera, and all of the negatives, I don't think are deal breakers necessarily. They're just things that I'd like to see improved on the Pocket 4 whenever that comes out. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you've been using this camera, what are the things that you love about it? What are some things you'd like to see changed on a future version of it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.